Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Pop Cult X, your go-to show for all things pop culture. As I like to say, pop culture to the power of X. I'm your host, Danny, and along with Gabriel, we're here every week to chat with you. This is episode 99. So we're getting really, really close to that episode 100, the milestone. And maybe it's just a milestone I'm creating in my head, but it's pretty sizable number, I think, to have under our belt. And so, yeah, with the giveaway is still going on. If you're interested in entering, go to any of our social media channels and find the instructions there. They'll also be listed in the show notes down below. So with that being said, Gabe, how was your week? How are things going? What you been up to?
It's been pretty good. I was able to check out a really cool movie on Disney Plus by the name of Chang Can Dunk.
Yes.
Really great movie. We actually have the director and writer who will be on the show a little bit later tonight. But it got me thinking about coming of age stories and some of my favorites. So I got a list of, the top 10, most popular coming of age stories. Wanted to go over with you, see if you agree, if you disagree, which ones were compelling to you, which ones you related to, or which ones you hated, if strong of an effect on you. So we'll just kind of go through it, see what your thoughts are, if you don't mind, and then we'll kind of go from there. But starting backwards or in reverse order, we have number 10, which was The Sandlot. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that you love that movie.
Why? Because it's baseball and it's sports.
Baseball themes.
I mean, well, I do love the movie. I mean, and it's so quotable, right? You're killing me, small is probably the most famous line from there. But it's one of those movies I watched. I was probably like 13, 14 when it came out. So it was really, was it 30? It came out in 93. So how old was I? 10, 16? A little bit older than I expected. Okay, yeah, but it was really good. I mean, it's because it reminded me, I guess, growing up when in elementary school, I would play baseball with kids on our little cul-de-sac, right? So we'd have a tennis ball. We wouldn't have a sand lot. We had an asphalt lot, I guess, if you go so to speak. And it kind of, it gave me brought back those memories, and those were really good times, really enjoyable. You're as a kid, you don't have any other worries in the world, but going out there and seeing what kind of trouble you're going to get in with your friends in the ball and on the ball field. And that was so very relatable. So yeah, that movie was really good. How about you? What do you think of it? Have you seen it?
I don't even think that I've watched all of it all the way through. I know that it's a good movie that people love saying. You're Killing Me Small is like literally it's like universally loved by everyone, but I can't say that I've sat through the full film. The next film, I'm gonna do a group a couple because I think some of these may not be as popular to us from our generation as some other people. But number 9 is 10 Things I Hate About You. Number 8 is The Outsiders, and number 7 is Dead Poet Society. Any of those favorites of yours?
Well, I mean, Outsiders was very quotable in high school because we read the book, right? So maybe not so much the film, but the more of the story of, Pony Boy and whatnot. Have I seen it? I don't remember. I probably did watch it once. 10 Things I Hate About You, which is isn't that a play on a Shakespearean tale?
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen the whole thing all the way through that movie, but it is supposedly really good. I mean, it's a Heath Ledger film. I like Heath Ledger a lot. And Dead Poet Society, of course, with Robin Williams and Oh Captain, My Captain, right?
Yeah.
And that's one movie I need to go rewatch. I think I watched it when I was probably too young to realize its impact it would have on me. So if I go back and watch it now, it'll probably mean more to me than it did then.
Yeah. All right. So this next one is going to be a controversial one for us because I think this film is very popular. Most people love it. There are aspects of the film that I really do love, but the main character I really cannot stand because I just my personality is I'm such a rule follower that I cannot relate to this character at all. It's Ferris
I think
Bueller.
I know what movie you're talking about. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
There are certain aspects that I love the film, but I can't it gives me anxiety with all the rules that they break and the rebellious nature of Ferris and I can't do it. I can't I'm like such a like I don't know. I was the good kid that like I would never do like I would never steal my friend's dad's car. I would never ditch. Like I just was not that kid. So I can't relate to, but I can relate to like other characters. I don't know. It's a funny movie. I just because of that, I can't enjoy it as much as other people can, I think.
I agree with you there. I mean, yeah, he's hailed as like the hero of the film, right? But he's kind of a jerk. You think
Yeah.
about it, right? He makes his best friend do all things that he doesn't want to do when he's sick, and yeah, I mean, it's funny in a way because of the hijinks that he gets into, and you want to see him get out of it. But I think I'm more in the camp with like maybe Ferris's sister. You want to see him get caught
Mhm.
because it's always like the younger brother or the younger sibling who always gets away with everything, right? So it's like that kind of person that like, man, I wish they just get caught because that's not that it's not fair, but it's not right that they get away with anything they want.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm in that camp as well. I hear you. I'm a
I think
rules
in an
follower.
alternate universe, there's a Ferris Bueller film where he gets his comeuppance and like gets caught and gets detention and his parents like ground him and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
girlfriend leaves him and the dad sues him for wrecking his car.
Yes, that would be awesome.
The next film I can relate to a lot is Clueless. And the reason why is that I knew people like this in high school, the Alicia Silverstone characters, Cher and Dion. I had friends that were just like that. The groups of people in the film were very much relatable to like my high school experience. And it's an Amy Heckerling film who is sort of a master of doing um high school teenage coming of age films. She
Mhm.
also did Fast Time at Ridgemont High. And so Clueless is like a classic for like the kids, I think of like the 90s, 2000s. When did it come out?
95.
1995. So yeah, definitely
Hmm.
for like the 90s. Very classic. I mean, we've seen them actually throw back to Clueless in a lot of commercials recently,
Yeah,
because it is such a popular milestone film for people of our generation.
completely agree. I mean, yeah, I think it encapsulates that the 90s very well, especially
Mhm.
with the different cliques that are there. You have the skaters, the slackers, the preppies, and then of course all centered around Cher, Alicia Silverstone's character. And I can watch it any day of the week, anytime it's on, I'll leave it on. It's such a great enduring movie. Is that the way you put it? Yeah.
During, yeah.
Yeah, it hangs in there great. And yeah, it's really, and it's also one of the first Paul Rudd movies, I think. And he looks the same in that than he does now. So,
Yep. So the next one, I think that may not be that big of a hit for you. Number four, The Perks of Being a Wallflower. I think our generation might have just missed the mark on this one. We might be a little too old to like really relate to it. I don't know. Have you seen it and did you like it?
I've seen it and read the book.
Oh no.
So you were wrong there. I did like it a lot. I mean, I really enjoyed the awkwardness that the main character has to go through and live through. It's such, I mean, I've never been to his where he's at in the film mentally, but I think just, wanting to fit in and wanting to observing everything. It is really a great story. I enjoyed both the movie and the book.
Nice. So this next one is a classic. Just we've seen a reemergence of one of the stars in this film. This year he won an Academy Award. Um, this is like the Gen X coming of age story, The Goonies.
Yes, yes, great movie. Um, I this movie, I don't want to say it played a lot into my childhood, but maybe it did because I'm thinking about the movie and all the storylines from it and just the adventure aspect of it and wanting to go on that grand adventure with friends to find the buried treasure, right? where X marks the spot and stuff like that. So it really is great. And all the actors in it have gone on to pretty prolific careers. I mean, Sean Astin,
Yeah.
Josh Brolin, um, and there's so many others in that. And it's just, especially now with Kwan winning the Academy Award. So it really is a great movie. It really is. I love that movie.
Yeah, I mean everything that you said, like I wanted to be in the film. Like I
Hmm.
wanted to be like the real life characters, but I also wanted to be the actor in it because I knew that that wasn't realistic of like me having that type of adventure.
Uh-huh.
And so it's just such a great classic movie. It's so funny. It's timeless. I can watch it whenever it's on. This next one I would probably have to say is my teen angsty, like this is my number one for me. So it's The Breakfast Club.
Mhm.
um John Hughes is like movie making, god when it comes to writing about teenagers.
Yeah, true.
This one for me was like, so it's just like the drama, like the emo-ness of it, like totally hit home with me, even though like I didn't ever have detention. I imagine that if I did, it would be something similar to this. um it just such a good movie. I mean, I think he encapsulated like the different characters of each of the teenagers, like the stoner, the
Mhm.
nerd, the weirdo, the like princess, the jock, and we're able to get them all to relate to each other, even though they all came from different worlds. And it was one of those films that like you watched as a teenager and you thought like it wasn't a film that an adult made that they thought teenagers were a certain way. It was like very authentic to what we actually go through. And it wasn't a happy go lucky kind of a story. It was like pretty angsty. And so I
Mhm.
thought that really, I mean, I don't know why I had so much angst as a teenager, but like it really spoke to me.
The,
Uh,
I
are you a fan of it? I know some people don't like Breakfast Club.
Well, Breakfast Club, I remember growing up, it was always one of those movies that my parents would say, you can't watch it. I remember I could picture the clamshell VHS case sitting on the shelf, and I wasn't allowed to watch it.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, I don't know if it was just because of the language or the content, I wasn't able to. Since that time, I think I've seen bits and pieces of it, so I never saw the whole thing until last night.
Oh, really?
I watched it for the first time the whole way through. And I agree completely with everything that you said. I think John Hughes is a mastermind when he's writing these teenage characters. And it's just the way that the characters came together in their shared, um, even though they're from different backgrounds, they're still going through the same thing. All of them
Yeah.
have that, finding out who they are and what they want to be and not knowing what's next for them or not wanting to have to realize the dreams that their parents are pushing onto them. And that's the common goal that they all have. And I think it's such a great movie. I really, really enjoyed it. And yeah, it was just so much fun to watch. Maybe it was just the rebel in me. Haha, take that, mom and dad. I'm finally
Right?
watching it.
Well, the final film on the list of top 10 of like coming of age stories is Stand By Me,
Mm,
which is a classic. I
mhm.
think it was actually based on a Stephen King story, right?
I
Or
think so.
yeah, and it's got some iconic actors: Will Wheaton, River Phoenix, Jerry O'Connell, Corey Feldman. Came out in '86, so but I was about 9 years old when it came out. And I think that it's just a classic. It's just like a classic buddy movie for young
Hmm.
kids
Hmm.
that are out on an adventure and are dealing with some serious stuff. And um, who would have thought that a group of four, young actors, young little boys could have, such a depth to their performance that makes you feel for them. And it's just a really great coming of age story. It's just, that time between, you being a young boy to kind of going into teenage years.
Yeah,
And they did such a great job with making that film.
they did. And it is a great film. I remember I was able to watch that one, not Breakfast Club though. I was able to watch Stand and Deliver, Stand by Me. I mean, not Stand and Deliver. That's a completely different movie. But I remember the one scene that that stands out to most to me because I had a weaker stomach when I see someone regurgitate.
Yeah,
But that scene where they're telling the story about the pie eating contest, oh.
that is for me the standout scene in that is when they have the leeches on their bodies. That freaked
Mhm.
me out. Being from Arizona, I was like, wait, that's a thing? Like there's leeches? Like I just like it was like I had no idea. So that terrified me about going into the water and like some sort of like watering hole and
Mhm.
just was stuck on me.
Yeah. Now, were there any other movies that maybe weren't on this list that you remember? Maybe not as you're growing up, but even today or as an adult that you saw that was really a good coming of age story to you?
I think that these were really great. I'm trying to think of if there's any other ones that like really resonated with me. Um, I can't. I mean, there are a lot of the John Hughes films that I really liked. I just couldn't relate to because they were they were just so like such white stories to like for lack of a better word.
Yeah,
Like
that's
all the
true. I hear
characters were
you.
all white. He tried to like separate the characters by economics, right? So it was like the
Hmm.
rich versus the poor a lot.
Hmm.
But it was such a like a lily white cast that I sort of watched it as like an outsider. So I really
Okay.
wish there would have been some really great coming of age stories with like young Latinos or people that I could relate to a little bit better. I still love those films, don't get me wrong, but um I can't really think of anything else outside of that list. What about you?
Well, I'm looking through the list right now, and there are other great ones on here. I mean, ah, goodness. One that really stands out to me, I don't know if it's on this list, is another person who does tear or steer toward the whiteness, like you were saying, is Moonrise Kingdom by Wes Anderson.
Yeah.
And that was a really great film. I love that film. I'm a big Wes Anderson fan. And that was really one that's really like the coming of age, as a boy, as a scout going on this adventure and whatnot. So maybe it's just us wanting to go on adventures, right? Maybe that's just what it
I
really is.
did
If you
think of
make him
another one though. What's the film with Brendan Fraser where he goes to the prep school and they find out that
school ties.
School Ties. That one I did relate to is being an outsider and like trying to
Hmm.
fit in with like society, society and sort of being coming from, maybe not the richest family, but having to be around a bunch of rich kids and being, different ethnically.
Yeah.
Uh, that one was really and it really kind of the whole story or the arc of the story being like stay true to who you are because that's what's really important, not like fitting in and trying to be just like everyone else. So I think that I would put that one on my list.
Yeah, and you mentioned about Latinos in films and whatnot, and Stand and Deliver, which I said earlier was a great film. It had Edward James Olmos and Lou Diamond Phillips, right? The honorary Mexican, right? And it tells the story of this teacher that goes in and tries to teach the kids the math class, right? And how they go on to excel once someone really believes in them. And so yeah, I think that's on my list. I really enjoy Stand and Deliver.
Yeah. Well, another film that I would probably add to this list of a great coming of age story is actually the film that I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast is Chang Can Dunk. We actually
Mm-hmm.
are really fortunate to be able to have the director do an interview with us, Mr. Jingyi Shao, took the time to sit down with us and discuss his film, his inspirations, how music influences his work, and his filmmaking process. So why don't we go ahead and take a listen and check out our interview?
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Little Talks with Pop Cult X. It's our conversation series where we chat with a wide variety of creative minded people. Today, we are thrilled and excited to be joined by Jingyi Shao, the writer and director of the newest hit on Disney Plus, Chang Can Dunk. So, Jingyi, welcome to Pop Cult X.
Dude, thanks so much for having me. I love that you guys love the movie, and it came out 2 weeks ago, and it's doing quite well. So I'm happy about that. But I just love that people from different areas are finding something to enjoy about it.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And we'll get more into the movie in a bit, but I want to talk a little bit about your journey into becoming a filmmaker. So how did that start? Where did this storytelling all begin for you?
Oh man. I think that storytelling began for me in when I was very young. My parents were immigrants. I'm actually an immigrant myself, but I came here when I was very, very young. And I remember my mom would take me to the library and she would like study because she was in community college and she was trying to get a degree. And I think I was like 5 or 6, and I would go to the library with her, and I would just pull random books from like the children's section and try to read them. And I got really obsessed with the Hardy Boys detective series. That was like an iconic part of my childhood. I was determined to read every single one.
Nice.
And and they go through those two brothers in high school go through a lot. Let me just tell you. I think that really sort of just imbued me with a love of like storytelling in any format.
Very cool. I know I used to read like a lot of the choose your own adventure books growing up, and that was
Those
like
are great too. Do you remember the? I don't know what age you guys are. I'm gonna assume that we're relatively close. But do you guys remember like they would have like the book day or book fair, and then they would have like the magazines. You would go home and you would like tell your parents to order which ones. Those
like
were
the Scholastic Book Fair. Yeah, yeah.
Scholastic Book Fair. That's right. That's right.
Yep.
And I remember like the Goosebumps and like Hardy Boys and the Choose Your Own Adventure things were part of that.
Yeah, yeah. So you get from the library and from reading books, it just fills you with like this sense of wonderment because you want to be able to tell these sort of stories. And I was looking at your website, and it says that you moved back to I guess, China, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where on set you kind of got roped into the filmmaking business.
I mean, I wouldn't say I was roped in. I was definitely seeking opportunities. Like at the time, I was in film school at USC.
Oh, right.
I was nearing graduation, and like every film student will tell you, like there's tremendous anxiety because you need your thesis to be great in order for you to continue as a director. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And I really had no idea for what my thesis was going to be, and so like I basically ran away for a little bit, and I took a vacation to visit my family in Shanghai. And Shanghai at the time was this like amazing city that was full of like innovation and like a lot of just random people from all over the world having an adventure together. And I really love the energy of that. I feel like the spirit of creativity requires that kind of like the energy of possibility. And I really experienced
that. Yeah.
And I kind of just talked my way onto set. And from there, I got Shanghai didn't have a lot of film shooting, but it had a lot of commercial shooting. And that was really, really sexy to me. That was really, because like commercial shooting, like they got all the toys, they got the cars, and they got, they got all the cool cranes, and you only do it for 2 days. So, that it was a really, really interesting time for me. And like, I think I tend to approach my filmmaking from a writing perspective. Like I really think about it like beat by beat, the story, telling the story. And the commercial world made me sort of exercise the muscle of like visual storytelling and sort of really think more about like, how does this shot communicate very complex emotions and feelings and mood and also story.
Right. No, it does. I think Gabe and I were both photographers in our own right, and so we understand. At least I can't speak for Gabe, but for myself, I understand what you mean with the visual storytelling. What an image has to tell the story, has to be able to communicate it without the words at all. Yeah,
for sure. And I think commercials really innovate in that regard because they need to capture the audience's attention immediately because they only have 30 seconds.
Right.
And so that was a great experience.
Absolutely. And I think that one of the things that you mentioned as far as your training with some of the cool camera angles you can be seen in your new film, Chang Can Dunk. I think there's some of the coolest camera angles. I mean, the camera goes all over the place. I definitely can see that you brought that into this with a choice that you wanted to have really fun. I want to even say kind of youthful, and a youthful approach to filmmaking, because you see a lot of that influence of people making YouTube videos, TikTok,
100%.
things like that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, content creation is a big subplot in the film.
Mm-hmm.
And I did look at a lot of YouTubers and TikTokers, and there's a lot of filmmakers now. They do like cool transitions, and they have the gimbal, and the gimbal spins. The gimbal can do, like, I feel like what a whole army of professional Hollywood equipment can do in a way. You know what I'm saying? And so I wanted to reflect that in this, because there's a filmmaker character in the film. But he's doing it as from the perspective of like a high school kid. And so, when we were designing some of the shots, we were thinking about like how he would approach it, what inspirations he would draw from, what are his favorite or least favorite directors, and then what would his sort of like flavor be. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think that's in terms of like, if you were to ask me like, what did I try to add cinematically, I wanted to bring that sort of YouTube language into a feature film.
And you did a great job at it, I think. I mean, some of the YouTube shorts that we saw on there were just fun, really energetic and fun, and I really enjoyed those. For the story itself, though, would you say, or would you consider, how much of your own story is imbued into the story or the screenplay for Chang Can Dunk? Did you grow up playing sports? Is that something that maybe translated into it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the film touches on a lot of moments, emotions, some relationships that I've had. I think if you went back in time and saw me in high school, it would be a very, very different film. But for sure, there's the spirit of who Chang is really reflects on, I think, me and my own journey. I actually think this film is probably closer to like my arc of like becoming a filmmaker. I tell everyone that this film is actually about me making a film. And the first scene that I came up with was the scene where Chang is trying to dunk alone in the snow, and he keeps trying to do it and he can't do it. Mm-hmm. And that came during a period where I was writing my first, I had never been paid to be a writer, and to sort of, to get your foot in the door and to break in and to have someone say you're good enough to pay you to write is a big, big step and very scary. And, I was running up into a lot of barriers, and that was the scene that sort of came to me. And so like, I think a lot of the moments in the script, Chang feeling like he's not good enough, his relationship with his mom, him double downing, on the bet and saying that he can do it. I think it was in a way like actually me expressing like my desire to be a filmmaker, and what I think a lot of filmmakers go through on their first project, which is self-doubt and wondering like and trying their absolute hardest, but wondering like what the result's going to be. But yeah, I love basketball. I was in marching band in high school. I was awkward. So those parts are definitely based on parts of my life. Yeah.
Very cool.
One of the parts that was really touching for me watching it was the relationship between Chang and his mother. Did you draw inspiration from your own life? And I think that the reason why it was so touching for me is that we see a lot of films that touch upon a woman's relationship with their daughter, but rarely a growing young man and a mother who is, thinks of them as their baby and then is having to come to terms with them becoming a young man. I mean, I thought that was incredibly touching and a really great piece of the film. Was that something that you wanted to do to kind of pay homage to your mom, or something that you drew upon in your own relationship with her?
Yeah, it was actually in part a discovery. I originally wrote it as a father and son script, and it was going to be kind of a treatise on like masculinity. I wanted it to be like almost like an Asian American rebel without a cause. Mm-hmm. But as I was thinking and reflecting back on my high school years, I realized that one of my key frustrations, one of the things that held me up the most was my relationship with my mom. And, being a little older, knowing a lot more about her story and what she was going through during that time, it was interesting because, it really opened up a lot, not just for the screenplay, but for myself and understanding myself. But like, my mom was going through a lot of the same things that I was going through in high school, trying to fit in, feeling like really out of place, feeling like I was doing things wrong, not knowing my place in the world, basically. And at that time, my mom was studying to be or she had just started work at a hospital. Okay. And she had just done community college as like a 45-year-old woman. Oh, wow. Her English wasn't that great. And she basically had to go to work, and, patients would be impatient with her or mistreat her because she couldn't communicate that well. Her bosses would sort of like, like talk down to her. Her coworkers would, ostracize her sometimes, and she had to struggle and figure herself out in that way. And I think that like she brought a lot of that home, and I brought a lot of like what I was going through in high school home. And then two of us sort of, even though we were going through the same thing and we had a lot, we could have sort of connected on that shared difficulty, we ended up, butting heads. And that's also just a reflection of like, I am who I am because I got a lot from my mom. My mom is a very, very tough woman, but that can also come off the wrong way. And I think, having gone through my own journey and becoming a filmmaker, and I understand myself better, I now have a much better relationship with my mom. And so the film kind of represents that arc in a very, very condensed Disney storyline. You know what I mean? But I think that like, I think a lot of people see that because as you grow older, you see the limitations of your parents, and you see them as people. You see them as, people that have their own wounds to heal. That brings families closer together, hopefully.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the film, wrote it in like 2020. I guess it was featured in the Blacklist.
Yes.
What a thrill, or how did you feel when it got picked up by Disney to become a Disney Plus original? What was that like for you, that moment?
It was crazy. Like this whole process, I wrote this, I pitched this to a producer along with a bunch of ideas. Mm-hmm. And when I came up with the idea, I was like, I really like this idea. But I always thought, I was like, who is making a movie like this? About the stakes are on the surface like so low. You know what I mean? It's like a kid, he makes a bet and he wants to dunk. That's it. You know what I mean? There's no championship. There's no, you know what I mean? Like in today's film world, it's like the world has to end. Not just one world, multiversal world needs to end for there to be stakes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's like a kid and he's an angsty kid and he wants to dunk and prove that he's cool. And so I was always worried that like people might like the script, but who's going to make this? And the version I wrote was a little bit raunchier because I felt like this kind of film might do well on Netflix, which has a lot of like YA stuff. And interestingly enough, it was Disney that showed the most interest, and I thought Disney would show the least interest. But the more I thought about it, I was like, you know what? I wasn't thinking about it when I was writing it, but in retrospect, the 90s Disney films had a huge impact on me, maybe subconsciously, that I then expressed through writing this. And, the tone, especially, because early on, the tone was a lot more sort of like indie, like Sundance, like Chang was a lot cooler. He was a lot more self-aware. He's a lot more like witty. And this sort of like more naive and silly and kind of like dumb that I wrote him, the more fun the movie became and the more it sort of, came alive. I don't know if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah. you know what I mean? Like he's so not self-aware, and that's what makes it charming. And I thought
and relatable.
I was like, and relatable, because when you're a teen, it's like when adults write teens, I think a lot of times it's like you want to write who you wish you were at that age. But when I think about myself at that age, I thought I knew a lot of shit, but looking back, I literally knew absolutely nothing, and I was just flying by the seat of my pants and probably saying a lot of ridiculous stuff. That's Chang, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so when Disney, to answer your question, like when Disney was like, "Hey, we're really into this," I was like, "Oh, wait a second, this is actually an amazing pairing." And the more I thought about it, like the more I was like, "Wow, it's actually really profound." Because I specifically remember watching Disney films growing up and wishing that like there's a version of me that I could see, or like a version of my family that I could see. I would see this kid, he'd be like not cool at school, he'd going through like bullies or whatever, and then his mom would be like, "Oh, it's okay, son, I love you." And I'd be like, "Damn, I wish I wish I had a family like that, you know?" And I realized that it was actually a great responsibility for me to make this film for Disney because, when you have the castle in the beginning, it really goes out in the world. It really becomes part of culture.
That's very true.
How important was it for you to create a story for, like you said, a film that you wanted to see when you were young, but for those that are in their teen years now, for those Chinese American young men and women and African American women, Latinos, et cetera, that see this film and can see themselves reflected, how important was that for you?
I think that like it's always been uh, one of the driving forces of why I tell stories because it's incredibly powerful. I mean, that is the power of movies, like obviously you want to make something that entertains people and makes people laugh. But the movies that I remember are the ones where the character whispers or has a look that I recognize that I've never maybe said out loud or expressed or told anyone about. And I think in those moments, you really when you really see a hidden part of yourself, it really just connects you with like everyone. I think that's the kind of feeling that I think there's a specific word for it. I forget what it is, but like that's when I feel like the true power of like movie making is evident, and I try to strive for that, and like and when you grow up Asian American, you really don't see a lot of protagonists. You might see side characters, but not a lot of protagonists. Like I talked with my lead Bloom, and I was like, "Listen, man, if you make a list of YA films with an Asian American guy lead, I think there's our film, and then we really couldn't think of any. I mean,
Right.
there are some like indie films, and there are some like sort of like more adult films, yes, but like a YA Disney film, like there's a scarce amount. It might be under 5. You know what I mean? And so that is really, really powerful. And like since the film has come out, I've had a lot of parents reach out and like say like their kids loved it, and they wish they had the film when they were younger, and that is an incredible feeling. I mean, you want everyone to like your movie, but like people to say it had an emotional impact on them.
Yeah.
It's really powerful.
Well, and for Chang to actually, not to spoil the movie for anyone, but for him to get the girl at the end, and I think that one of the things that I really love that you added in there is when she mentioned that she's not a prize to be won, but at the same time, for all of us nerds that kind of grew up in high school being awkward, for him to actually get the girl was like we can all root for him, and. But I thought that was an important message as well for young women that are watching the film as well, that she is not just a side character to be objectified and to be won over as a prize or to finish the film in sort of like in a pretty way, but that she had her own issues that she was dealing with, and that was a complicated character and had a sophisticated story to tell as well.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for pointing that out. I mean, you're the first person who that's a very, very important line for me. And I think one of the most important messages in the film. And so thank you for pointing that out. I still think the film is sort of a very like Disney-fied treatise on like, masculinity and like what boys sort of value and what they think brings them value, especially if they're not getting it at home or from their peers. And a lot of the times it's material stuff, especially in today's age where like, popularity is no longer in high school. Popularity is Instagram, right?
Yeah.
And YouTube and like, and how do you build that? How do you build that popularity? A lot of times it's sort of like through outward social cues and like, what kind of clothes you wear and what kind of hairstyle you have, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that like, even like the language, I mean, if you watch like 80s, 90s films, I mean, the girl is there to be gotten, you know what I mean? Like to be acquired via your feats, you know what I'm saying? And I think there that can teach kids the wrong thing. And so I wanted to make sure that in the story, Chang learns the real lesson that he needs to learn, which is that he needs to have self-respect. He needs to get validity from within himself rather than from the outside. And through that, then he values other people as individuals.
That's great.
Right on.
The aspect that I wanted to touch upon on the film that I really enjoyed was the music. You have such a great soundtrack. Was that a choice that you wanted to focus on some 90s hits, some favorites from the 90s, or did you just get lucky getting some great songs?
I mean, let me tell you something, man. When you make a movie and soundtrack is so much luck and relationships, and because great music costs a lot.
Yeah.
And the fact that this soundtrack ended up the way that it is such a testament to like my music team and my composer. We definitely had music's really important. So I actually I actually try to find a song that represents the tone and the emotion of a movie before I even start writing. That really helps me visualize and think outside the box of like what I want to hit. And so I had a few songs in a playlist. I showed it to my music supervisor beforehand. I knew the 90s. I knew I wanted to give the film a bit of a nostalgic feeling back to when I was in high school, which was kind of like the early 2000s, late 90s era. And there was a lot of like rock and stuff like that. The Jimmy Eat World, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
But yeah, we wanted to make a basketball film that wouldn't just sort of lean on hip hop. And we wanted to give it sort of a unique sound. And I think we did a good job of achieving that with the marching band plus the sort of like modern, but also nostalgic hits. Yeah.
When they started playing Seven Nation Army, I was like, yeah, that was so cool.
That one was cool. I thought that would cost us like half our music budget. They actually had to send the script to the White Stripes.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, and they had to read it in order to approve, and they approved it. So I guess he liked it.
Right on. That is cool. So one question I had about DeAndre Dexter or Dexter Darden playing DeAndre.
Yes.
Did you write him to be the Urkel on the basketball court, or is that just something that came together as you guys were filming?
I got to think about that. So originally, that idea came from a viral video of this N1 Hooper called Professor dressed up as Spider-Man.
Okay.
So in a very lazy fashion, I wrote him as Black Panther. So he's dressed as Black Panther. He's challenging people to pick up. Marvel said no. And then we had to scramble. We had to scramble to be like, okay, what would someone else do?
Right.
And then I remember seeing another sort of iteration of that, which was like Nerd takes on Venice Beach Hoopers or something like that. And then I was like, oh, like, what if it was Urkel? And then Urkel is actually owned, I think it's under the Disney media conglomeration. Yeah. And then we asked for permission and then they said, okay. So
that's cool. That's awesome. Yeah. That like sets up his whole character. So you know who Dexter is going to be, who DeAndre is. I mean, based upon that, I think. And I think his character was just so relatable to me not that I can hoop or anything like that, but that, wanting to help someone else out, wanting to really see the best for someone, wanting to make sure, go above and beyond just to make sure that they are able to fulfill their dreams.
No, that's so true. And I'm so glad that it was Black Panther in the end. I never thought about how Urkel set that up, but now that I think about it, it's true. It's like he is so giving right away.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually didn't write the character that way. I wrote the character like a lot cooler, and that's why he needs to be convinced via this kind of deal. But the way Dex played it was just so warm-hearted and giving.
Yeah.
Almost like they've been brothers for forever,
Yeah.
And yeah, he really owned that role. He really made that role his.
I
One thing you
agree.
mentioned earlier was the importance of music in your writing and setting up the tone for your film, and your films. What are you currently listening to right now? What's inspiring you, or what are you drawing
Oh
inspiration?
boy. Okay. I have a dream project. I have a dream project on that I'm thinking about a lot recently. And I can't tell you what it is, but I'll tell you the band. I'll tell you the band. There's a Mongolian metal band called The Who. I don't know if you ever heard of them.
I'm not.
Have you played the Jedi action game? What's it called? Jedi.
Fallen Order.
The sequel's about to come out. Fallen
Yeah,
Order,
Jedi
yes.
Survivor is coming out soon. Yeah.
Yes. So they actually did an original song for the game, and it's
Oh,
the
wow.
very first level
Okay.
where like, you're going through the junkyard.
Yeah. Yeah.
That song. But anyway, they combine sort of like traditional Mongolian instruments and throat singing with like metal music, and it's like amazing.
Wow.
And
That's
so
okay.
I've been listening to, not that I'm like a huge metal or a Mongolian throat singing fan, but the two combined
That
just
fusion,
creates an
yeah.
atmosphere that's like perfect for this film that I'm thinking about right now.
Nice.
Very cool.
My imagination is just like going.
I mean, I hope you guys. I hope when you guys play this in, you can play some of it.
I'll see if I can find some. See if we can get it in there without YouTube dinging us.
Yeah, it's the Who. It's the Who. HHU.
Okay, very cool. I'll have to look them up. So one of the things I liked a lot about the film was like some of the transitions in the notebook with all like the graffiti writing and stuff in there. Is that and it really made it more youthful and energetic, at least to me. Now, in pop culture, since we are a pop culture show, you said what you're listening to. Is there anything you're currently playing, watching that you currently enjoy you could recommend to other people? Or just that you're enjoying?
Man, like a lot of people, I'm playing The Last of Us again.
Yeah, me too.
And I'm like comparing the show to the game. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know what your guys. I'm curious as to your guys' opinion. I felt like the show started out really strong, and it kind of wasn't as strong towards the end. But with the game, I felt like it just progressively got stronger and stronger. And I'm like, and I'm playing the game again because I kind of want to understand what it was that made the game feel. Because I feel like The Last of Us, the first game, I played it in 2020, so I was a little behind. But I felt like that was one of the best pieces of storytelling I've seen, maybe ever. And I'm like trying to figure out what it is that kind of didn't really hit for me in the show, but works in the game so well. I think maybe it was just the way they kind of condensed the time, but
it could have been. I mean, I'm playing through it again right now as well. First time I played was when it first came out, and I just played like the first few levels. But they both start off, I think, fantastically with like the prologue, right? So right when the virus hits, and in the game and in the movie, I think they're equally as intense. Now, I think the show itself, it builds on that. I mean, there are a couple episodes where it's kind of like, I don't want to say filler, but just kind of moving the story along to get to the climatic end episodes. And the finale was just like, ooh, it was like a John Woo film right there, like a hard boiled type of thing. And it was just, I think, a great accumulation of everything that built up to it.
So you just agree? You think the show kind of maintained it as well?
Yeah, I think it held its own. Each episode was self-contained. I thought was really great. And then altogether, when I finish playing The Last of Us, I'll let you know what my thoughts are on where that. But I think the show, I liked it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. One of my favorite series that I've seen in a while.
How about you guys? What are you guys playing these days? I'm looking for a new game.
I just started playing Midnight Suns, the Marvel strategy tactical turn-based game. It's pretty fun because I've been playing Marvel Snap on my phone a lot, so I'm getting used to playing cards and stuff like that. Of course, baseball season is coming out, so the new version of MLB The Show is awesome. I'm waiting for Wolverine to finally get released. This was announced like a year and a half ago.
Oh, is that going to be like a Spider-Man kind of like version, but Wolverine? Oh, yeah, that's going to be
fun. I'm waiting for that. I mean, I always say that they should make like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle game based on around like the dynamics of the Spider-Man game. The open world concept, that would be so much fun, but they haven't developed that yet.
And you could do like 4-player. That would bring back. Remember the old what is it?
The console.
The one where you like go across the screen.
The side-scrolling game. Yeah,
side-scrolling. Yeah.
I remember that.
That would be epic.
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun.
I just play all the classics like Pac-Man.
Yeah.
You just play what you have there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I love the setup.
I'm old-fashioned, I guess.
Well, right on. Well, Jingyi, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. We really appreciate it. And we're really looking forward to seeing what you do next. So I think I really enjoy your storytelling style. So I'm really looking forward. I know you can't say what you have in the pipe there, but I know you're working on a few projects coming up for a few different studios. So that's exciting.
Thank you so much. I mean, it was a pleasure to talk with you guys. Check out The Who, rock out. And maybe you'll be able to guess what I'm working on. But it's exciting. I think you'll enjoy it if you enjoy Chang.
Okay.
So, thank you again so much.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Have a great night.
All right, that was a lot of fun. Once again, thank you so much, Mr. Shao, for
thank you.
honoring us with your inclusion on our podcast. We very much appreciate it. Definitely one to watch. He recently was voted, I think, top 10 directors to look out for by Variety. And I couldn't agree more. Love the film, love the storytelling of it, love the relationships that were depicted in the film. So I will be keeping an eye out for all of the new work and definitely supporting him as the new director.
Yes, completely agree. And I think him taking the time to sit down and talk with us, I thought was just so cool because he's someone to watch out for. I think, like you said, he was voted into the Variety's top 10 of new directors to look out for, and I can see why. I mean, his storytelling, his writing was spot on. He, like we said in the interview, he captured so many different aspects of what it means to be a kid growing up and have all these different relationships that you need to kind of navigate through. So.
Right on. Perfect. So speaking of ones to watch, our next episode is definitely going to be one to watch because we are going to be hitting our 100th episode of Pop Cult X. So you definitely want to tune in. It's going to be a live episode. It's also going to be an opportunity for you to win a great piece of artwork by one of our former guests. So you definitely want to tune in. You want to go to our social media so you can enter to win this great piece of artwork. Danny, once again, how can they enter this great contest?
Well, there's several ways. Go to the website, popcultx.com. You'll see a button there that says enter the giveaway, and you just fill in your information, send it off. You get entered that way. You can go to YouTube, subscribe to our channel, which we really hope, if you're not already, that you will do so after this. And go ahead and just leave us a comment or a tag with popcultx100. That way we know to find you and enter you in. Go to Twitter or Instagram and do the same thing. There should be a pinned post on each of our profiles where you can comment, share, tag your friends. The more the merrier. Get them all in there. And yeah, we have a really cool piece. I shared an image with Gabe, so he's seen it now. And it's really cool. It's a really fun play on Jacob Edgar's co-creation of the Ones comic book. And this is what's really cool is this is the only physical art piece by Jacob Edgar for the Ones outside of the comic books. And those were done digitally. So this is going to be a physical art piece. So it's really exclusive in that way. If you think about it, it's the only one of its kind out there. So.
That's pretty awesome. So, I mean, definitely worth entering our contest and watching us this upcoming next show,
Yes.
which will not be this Wednesday, the Wednesday after. So definitely check us out. And once again, thank you for all of our listeners, our subscribers. If you like what you're listening to or watching, please like and subscribe. And we will see you live next week.
See you, everyone.
Take care.